back here in Berlin in week 3 of the EULCS Summer Split. Joining me in the studio is Andrew, Vedius Day, and Rockat's support, VoD. Now, I don't want to talk too much about last series, but VoD, just quickly, how's it feel? Now, on 2-game win streak, how you feeling about Rockat?
It's like start of the winning streak, as per usual, Rockat. Maybe, it feels good, like, everything is good right now, so I'm feeling good right now.
Just as a reminder, you guys are now the same score as G2 Esports. That's going to feel pretty good, right?
Oh my god, we are a top team.
Yeah, top team confirmed.
All right. Well, H2K took a hard hit as we focus in on our next series, Vitality versus H2K. H2K took a hard hit from the Unicorns of Love in their last series. Now they have to strike back here against Vitality. And my question is, H2K Unicorns of Love series, this felt really back and forth, Vedius. I'm curious, did you feel like this was H2K getting dominated by Unicorns of Love? Was it some mistakes on both sides? What was your opinion?
I feel like we saw the strengths of both teams throughout that series, where game 1, it was very clean, very methodical, very calculated from H2K, where they just seemed to execute and perform spectacularly. Then in game 2, we saw a little bit more of the Unicorns finesse. We saw the Unicorns style, where they were able to find a lot more fights. They were able to bait H2K into unfavorable situations. Then in game 3, it seemed to be a return of H2K just doing what they were supposed to do. And then it all just came down to this Baron play where they kind of felt pressured into making something happen, where they felt they needed it in order to close out the game. And then everything fell apart. And then Unicorns saw that opportunity and very quickly took it away from H2K.
That's really interesting too. Now, VoD, for you, looking at the bottom side of the map, we've got Shay going up against Vander. Who do you think has the edge in this support matchup? What do you think is going to be the big factor here?
I think Che was, when I was amateur in Korea, I was looking for Che because he was like really good at LCK also. And then like also Vander was like, he was good in EU. But I think I just want to cheering more Che because he's same as Korea and me. So I don't know. Like they're also good. Like basically, mechanically, just also good. I just want to see some pocket picks from them. So I just imagine some Blitzcrank and then.
Okay, so some pocket picks. Now we've seen, interestingly enough, we've seen Vander put a lot of priority on the Braum. Yamato Cannon in draft really likes the Braum here. What are your thoughts on that champion in this series?
I think Braum is also good against Blitzcrank, and then like it's like safety, you know, like. Okay, you guys pick some aggressive pick, and then I pick Braum for safety. You can just play safe, and then like it feels like it's barrier for team. So also if you play good, you can engage like Wolf, and then you can disengage. It's like complete champion, but I don't like it. Yeah, but I think it's I think it's good. Yeah.
All right, now Vedius, we've got our support expert here. I want to talk to you as our mid lane expert. Febiven versus Nukeduck. Now Nukeduck had a great series last week, but I'm wondering, who do you think takes the edge here? What do you think is going to be the determining factor?
I feel it's very difficult to count Febiven out, especially when you just look at his Lucian performance alone in their series versus H2K. This guy has been on a tear recently, trying to earn back his 2015 Febiven reputation, where he's trying to dominate every other player, but it feels like he really is coming into his own and just making the lane his own kingdom.
All right, well, looking pretty Febiven favored. Now we've got some interesting thoughts here. Maybe Chase support on the bottom side. Both you guys seem to be erring in the favor of H2K, but VoD, I'm going to ask you, who's going to win this series? What's the score going to be?
I think it's going to be H2K, of course. And then it's going to be 2-0 clearly.
Okay.
2-0 clearly.
With confidence.
Yeah. I'm going to have to agree with VoD. I think that H2K have looked extremely strong in recent weeks, and I think that Vitality still have a lot of their same issues that have where they've struggled against Unicorns of Love and Splice, and I don't think that they're gonna find the win here against H2K.
All right, well, it's a very H2K favored death. We'll see if Vitality can strike back, but for now, it's time to send it over to the casters as we get into game 1.
Thank you very much, Dracos, and good evening to all you esports followers out there. I'm, of course, Devin Pyrotengus Young, and here with me is James Stress O'Leary. How you doing, J-Lo?
I'm better now that the play-by-play caster here isn't insulting my people the entire time. We'll have a nice, relaxed
You still
cast.
need to watch DBZ. You outed yourself to me,
We don't need
to
bring that up every cast.
I'm going to until you do. Anyways, that's not that important right now. What is important is players hitting the rift. Let's go ahead and start on the blue side with H2K, which means up in the top lane, we will have Oda Wamne, followed up by Yankos in the jungle, Febiven in the mid lane, Nuclear the AD carry, support Che, and their coach, Prolly.
So you can see Yanko's yawning. We saw the tweet earlier with H2K asleep in the back of the transport on the way
very
here.
energized right now.
I hope they've had some coffee before starting this game, because they're going to have some tough opponents, one would think, after picking up their first win. It is Vitality on the red side of the Rift. In the top lane, Kabashard. In the jungle, Joko. Mid lane, Nuke Duck. 80 carry, Steelback. Support, Vanda. And their coach is Yamato Cannon.
Yes, indeed, picking up a much-needed win against the Mysterious Monkeys earlier on, and you got to think this is going to be a much, much tougher battle for this team. But maybe this is the start, the momentum that Vitality can build on.
But it's a grudge match. It's all about Vanda going against his old team. I'm looking forward to seeing how these all play out. There's a couple of intertwined storylines in Yamato Cannon, of course, as well. Used to be a bit of a force with Vanda and some of the former players on, I think it was Rocket and MYM, that lineup. Yeah, long way back.
All right, well, we're into picks and bans to start things off. We'll see how those rivalries develop as the game goes on, but for right now, we want to see what's banned away. It's two junglers on H2K's side, the Graves and the Kazakhs, followed by Zach. It's all been jungle.
So, taking away some of these big picks, we have seen both Graves and Kazakhs out of Joko. The only other champion he has played is Elise, and Vitality just banned that out themselves, so maybe we'll have to see him go over towards Elise Sin. Of course, with the Graves, the Kazakhs gone, that means we are now into that second tier. That's 4 jungle bans already in this draft.
Yeah, really got to think what they're going to be trying to hit next. And now in the first phase, winding down, H2K are going to stop with the Gragas. So,
a 5th?
Yeah, I mean, it's a flex. So
Lee Sin for a full house. Ah, the Thresh gets taken away.
That's the no-brainer, right? I mean, Che was, even though Thresh has been, a very meta pick this split, Che was the one bringing it out first and landed the God.
So that leaves us with Galio, with Xayah, Rakan, leaves us with Tahm Kench that's been banned, Fiora that's been banned, the Cannon has been banned. Like, so many picks that we've seen in almost every single game be banned away are actually available. So H2K take away the Xayah, basically say to Vitality, you need to take Rakan here, otherwise we are getting a very formidable bot lane, and that's where Vitality end up going. Now the Galio would kind of make sense. Interesting.
They decide to round out their bottom lane, so pairing up with the Rakan, it ends up being a Caitlyn for Steelback. Very comfortable champion choice for him, but we'll see what H2K end up answering with. Now, they don't really need to pick that AD carry just yet. All of them left up and available. I mean, excuse me, they don't need to pick their support up yet.
Well, H2K probably are wanting to pick up jungle in this rotation because of so many bans coming through already. You don't want to fall through into phase 2 of the draft without a tier 1 jungler, and there aren't too many tier 1 junglers left not named Lee Sin. So Vitality are going to have to show us something different here. Likely the support pickup, you would imagine, for H2K coming out here alongside this Xayah. Looking at what is available, you can play into Rakan. The Tahm Kench would be a decent pick.
And they're going to go ahead and do it. So, Tahm Kench to add a little bit extra protection to the Xayah lane. Now, Vitality have opted into the Warwick for Joko. Be a very different kind of jungle than what we've seen out of him so far. So far for him, it's really all just been these meta early game ganking junglers and the Kazakhs.
Yeah, and Warwick has obviously seen a lot of play over in Group B, Unicorns of Love in Group B with both H2K and Vitality. So now we're seeing one of these jungle picks drift into another team. Gonna have to see how Joko can actually play on the Warwick. But now we turn our attention to top lane for Vitality and H2K, because I feel like Odoamne may very well be the best performing top laner currently in the EULCS. His performances against Vizicachi, against Wonder have been, pretty much crushing. So now with the Kennen, with the Rumble out, I'm looking to see whether H2K put the Renekton or the Fiora on to Odoamne.
Wouldn't be that surprised if that's what they end up doing now. One last measure before we get into that is what their last ban is going to be, where H2K throws that one, as the Syndra had been previously what they removed. Trying to cut down on what Nuke Duck can do. Remember, he was the big hero of the Mysterious Monkey series, stepping up big in his role.
You could ban Galio at this point if you don't want them to just have that easily flexed pick between mid and top. That's, I think, somewhere where Vitality may want to consider. H2K may still just pick the Fiora into this. It is a bad laning matchup, but we saw Splice very handily deal with the Unicorns when it came to Chachi playing into the Fiora as Renekton.
And that would be such a classic Odoamne move, too. He prides himself on being able to win matchups that you don't win on paper.
And it's a matchup we've commonly seen in LCK still be picked into, because a lot of people say, okay, unless the Renekton gets a lot of help, you don't necessarily get crushed so hard that Fiora can't maintain side lane control the later this game goes. Galio would be, again, another matchup that Renekton would pressure out in the laning phase, but would be able to have emphasis elsewhere.
All right, having a little bit of fun as the seconds tick away.
Kled is another option that we may see out of Odoamne.
It's going to be the Fiora last second lock in. And Odoamne will get his chance at that one. Ad-Bat once again.
Yeah, so as we said, at this point, H2K picking up later game strength, but with the Xayah, with the Lee Sin, and the Tahm Kench already picked up, that does give them options to go towards mid, to go towards top lane. Maybe try and activate this Fiora earlier on than you would anticipate.
Well, Vitality gave themselves some options as well. Nukeduck, he didn't get his hands on Syndra, but the LeBlanc that he also showcased is going to make an appearance. So between that and the Renekton, they could have the potential to snowball some lanes. However, this Warwick is going to need a little bit of time before it can have an effect on those.
Yeah, a little bit of time in the game. This LeBlanc, though, I quite like it, although it won't necessarily be able to have lane presence too much against Febiven. You can look to go up towards top side. We talked about Renekton early game. If you can combo that with the LeBlanc, as you were talking about, the Warwick still can get into the lane early on. Maybe try and get things going, because other than that, Caitlyn, Rakan, not the best synergy between the two. You can get the knock-up into the trap, which is quite nice, but with the Tahm Kench there, it just means that Xayah should be quite secure in that bottom lane.
Yeah, really a combination kind of born out of the necessity to pick the Rakan away from H2K.
Yeah.
We'll see how it ends up working out for Team Vitality. This team really needs to build on the momentum that they've started, but H2K, they're going to be hunting, honestly, for some confidence back. It was such a hard loss at the very end of it all against Unicorns of Love. So close, but they fell short. And now, see if they take some of that frustration out against their opponents here today. Now, if you believe that is going to be the case, and H2K are going to put the wallop on Vitality, don't forget to hop on Twitter at Esports, hashtag H2K win. And if you believe in Team Vitality, you know which one it is, hashtag VIT win. Are they going to show some signs of life up against H2K? You want to build those wins going into cross groups. Every single W counts. We will find out as we are heading onto Summoner's Rift.
Gotta see how Vitality can come out of the gates with what should be an earlier game top half of the map. That's where we want to see their focus going. We want to see whether anybody else can have success on the Warwick, unlike just basically has been Xerxes for the Unicorns of Love up until this point. And then we're carrying on the trend of the day. Will Fiora remain undefeated in Europe at 7-0 currently? Odoamne got to win in that.
You got to trust in Odo, in all honesty. But Cabochard has got something to prove on the Renekton. It's a comfortable champion for him. Both of these top laners like to play themselves some carries, but we've seen drastically different career paths, trajectories for the two of them over the last couple of splits. And Odo definitely rising up, and has been really one of the top laners.
Yeah, I actually think this split right now, H2K's solo laners may very well be the best individual performing members. H2K's difficulties come together as team play and some decisions and fights that go against them. But I think when you look pound for pound, Febiven and Odoamne are actually the best performing individuals in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, Febiven's definitely been stepping up and kind of reclaiming some of his reputation as a star mid laner this split. Nuclear and Che have also done quite well, though, especially in the opening weeks.
And to speak on Febiven, I actually rated him coming into week 1 as, in my mind, beneath Exile. But I think that has drastically shifted. Now, with 3 weeks of play, Febiven has reasserted himself as the top mid laner in Group B. And with Perks slumping and, Caps looking good, but still not right up there at the top, I think Febiven is poised for this to be his split to make his mark as maybe EU's top mid laner.
Very possible. Now, Nukeduck is a player who's had a lot of experience as well on the Rift, and he stepped up big against the Mysterious Monkeys, but that is a different caliber of player. And something we definitely alluded to at the start of the game is that rivalry between Jankos and Vander, and he definitely fired the first shots in that one.
Jankos always one to start firing shots. The Vitality crew were also talking about camping top lane a little bit here as well. There's some shots back and forth on Twitter, and it's going to be a spicy one, you have to think. Jankos, we'll see if he gets drawn into a bit of madness when it comes to playing up against Vander.
He might just do it, but you talked about individual performance, and that might just be enough in the early game to help them out. I really want to see how the junglers differentiate the way they're going to play this one, since a lot of vision has been invested to making sure that both teams are able to keep eyes on where the junglers are. But that seems to be a bigger deal if you're trying to keep tabs on EULCS, since this guy is a madman, especially on Lee Sin.
Yeah, this Lee Sin has always been a big pick for EULCS' early game presence. We're going to have to see if he can have any impact, but historically, this hasn't always been the most one-sided of matchups. Actually, in the spring split, if you cast your mind back, Vitality defeated H2K in a game in a stomp. Now, they did lose that series, but it was the heaviest loss for H2K in the spring split, so I wouldn't count the Vitality lineup out, because this one, theoretically, is a little bit more stable with Vander in that bottom side than the whole spring debacle.
I mean, yeah, you talk about stability, right? I mean, when you have people swapping in and out, Nuke Duck going into the support role and everything, it was a different time for Vitality, but they are still having a rough start to this split, only picking up a win against the bottom team in their group. And you need to be able to do more than that if you want to have a chance at playoffs. Cross groups coming up. It's a whole different ball game in the next few weeks.
Absolutely. And one of the duos that I think we're going to have to keep our eyes on for the next couple of weeks that started this split at least with a bit of a bang is this bottom lane for H2K. Kind of just absorbed Vander's aggressive play there. Steelback wasn't really able to punish himself. And, you know, Che, with this Tahm Kench, not only is it good to keep Nuclear alive, it's difficult to harass down because the health regeneration that comes through, you've got the Doran shield on Xayah as well, so Nuclear and Che aren't likely to get killed unless there's a massive all-in. But speaking of all-in, topside.
Yeah, someone might be likely to get killed here. Cabochard, he slices, he dices. The minions are blocking the Sonic Wave, and it's going to be it right now. Odo Omni on half his health bar, still holding firm, but it's a 6 CS disadvantage as EULCS went in to try to look for the kill.
And as long as this CS disadvantage doesn't get too great in favor of Cabochard, it's an acceptable position for the Fiora to be in. We've talked about how it's going to be late game, but this would be one good way. Riposte is now down.
Okay, he's got flash. He might want to use it. Odo Omni. Oh, he's so low. In comes Joko. Flash for flash. And now EULCS is going to tag his way in.
Flash for flash had to really be traded there. There's no way Odo Omni can survive if he ends up dying here, but of course now this is a flashless Fiora. But the next time around, perhaps Vitality will be a little bit luckier on the exchange. But nevertheless, H2K looking to stabilize off their top side, looking to build around Odo Omni. He'll be able to even up the CS difference with the amount of time and CS under the tower here. So it's not too bad of a position, but still a nice attempt by Vitality. And the early game is where Vitality have maybe been the most successful.
Absolutely, they've been able to build themselves up some leads. But H2K, as long as they're able to keep denying, that's all they need to do. And that is going to be a frustrating thing if you're Rakan. Your gal just keeps getting swallowed up by a giant frog monster.
That is so frustrating at this point, just for Vitality in general, because every time they try and engage, you obviously have that delay between Rakan going in and the knockup actually landing. And Vitality's bottom lane, Steelback and Vander, with so much experience in the European LCS, you would envision being a bot lane that are formidable. The only real success that they've been having is when they move out of the lane and go up to top lane to push towers down alongside Cabochard. They have not really been any kind of dominant force in their group, and it's been a little bit underwhelming so far, and we want to see more from Steelback, from Vander.
You're absolutely right, and this has been one of Vitality's big issues. In fact, a large amount of the team just hasn't really been performing where they've needed to be, and they've relied on the likes of Joko to do things for them in the early game, which I think is why this Warwick pick is actually so surprising, because it is a later game jungler. But I really want to see how Joko ends up performing against the likes of EULCS, because see what it's been the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, EULCS somewhat back on form himself, not yet able to secure First Blood King for himself. Joko still has had some of the greatest impact when it comes to First Bloods for a team, but it kind of wears out after a while. And Joko, we've seen him have games where he starts 2-0 on Graves, then dies 5 times, and Vitality as a team can't hold things together. But maybe with this Warwick paired with the LeBlanc and the Renekton, if they can get that Infinite Duress combo off, that might be what Vitality need to secure an early game lead against H2K.
Yeah, you pick good targets, you're able to come up big, but that's the problem when you're dealing with the Tahm Kench, is he can always deny that. It's why this pick is so powerful, negating a lot of effects of a composition that the likes of which Vitality's bringing. However, it's a very even early game. We haven't had First Blood. We're at 7 minutes into this one, and there's been a few close calls. No flashes on either top lane or still the mid lane matchup. It's been Nuke Duck trying to hold on. Oh! Hello, goes. Shatter Orb. That's first blood. Goodbye, Febivin. And now Yanko's tagging in up top. Otawamne was fainting on that one, but Joko is soon to arrive. He wants to go all the way in. Look for the duress. Flashes. Dashes. There it goes. 2 quick kills for Vitality. Can they make it 3? Cabo Shard calls the Meek and gets himself another.
Well, we talked about how the top half of the map in the early game should belong to Vitality. An uncharacteristic 1v1 mistake by Febivin in the mid lane leads to then 2 kills up on the top side for H2K. Jankos and Otawamne just not really able to deal with this Warwick with the Renekton earlier in, but Otawamne still had no flash. This is just a misread from Febivin. Doesn't think that he's in enough danger of dying from that Shadow Orb because the chains didn't miss. It wasn't a clean 1v1, but then topside, look at it, Cabochard's still quite healthy after the Dominus is popped, and Otawamne, no flash, no riposte, can't get away from Joko. Joko with the infinite duress is enough to take it down, and it's an easy kill under the tower. This is what Vitality have done in the majority of their games in the early game. This is what has got them leads, and we need to see this continue, and maybe pull out another upset this week, because we've already had quite a few.
Yeah, we have, and Vitality themselves, I would say, looked like they could have potential to be upset, but it was hard to call against the Mysterious Monkeys. They had to have a couple mistakes go their way. But this is looking like a stronger team in the early game. Admittedly, this is the composition for it. You've got a Renekton, you've got a LeBlanc. You do have some late game insurance, though. Your Warwick and your Caitlyn, you can start to group as 5, and you can still make things happen. That Renekton becomes a tank.
Yeah, you can obviously have some of that late game insurance. You'd rather just snowball heavily. And Nugduck, our stats team have just passed me a little tidbit that this is his first solo kill of the split. So right after I commend Febivin for maybe being the best mid laner in Europe right now, Nugduck just walks in and solo kills him because Febivin misreads the trade.
Yeah. Well, and this is the thing about Nugduck, right? Like, oh, we'll get to that in a minute because Cabochard's getting dropped on by Nuclear. Che, Otawamne all under this tower. Che's going to swallow up the Fiora. They are trying to tank the aggro. Even Jankos join the fray, and they get the croc. But it was a huge investment for them.
Yeah, a big investment, but at the same time, this is the type of play that H2K were wanting to make with the Tahm Kench. We saw the Ninjas in Pajamas do this in the Series 1 of today. Vitality will be able to react by putting their bottom lane topside to deny the tower push, but still, that's what you need. You need that kill onto Fiora. She needs to be strong enough to be able to contend against the Renekton. The later this game goes, and you can see Cabochard 1 versus 3, 1 versus 4 as Jankos joins in. Just isn't able to survive, and then there's a heal coming through from H2K to keep him alive at the end of it all. But Vitality are still in the lead, and it is a significant lead at that.
Yeah, it was a nice swap, though, for H2K up towards the top side, but at the end, they go back down to the bottom, and that means that Vitality are freed up to try and take out this Rift Herald. Steelback will join Vander to help finish it off. Poke the big crab in the eye. And that means we might see first Tower Blood going the way of Vitality. The gold advantage, nothing to sneeze at this early on in the game. About 1,000 and some change, and that could easily get a little farther as they ping onto Otawamne. If Joko decides to head that way soon, we'll see some more action.
Yeah, H2K trying to push down the bottom side as Joko picked up Rift Herald for himself.
Good move for H2K here.
Yeah, Cabochard has to back away from the tower at this point. This was obviously reading into the fact that Vitality committed to topside on the backside of the play, and what that means is Steelback can't continue to push. H2K get the bottom tower. Otawamne is safe to just farm out under his tower himself on the top side, and then H2K coming right back into the game.
Yeah, that evens the gold up just after. Since Vitality were unable to get this tower up top, now you can see they're gunning for it. Joko still holding on to the Rift Herald, and Otawamne, if he oversteps his bounds, he has got no backup just yet. Jankos looking to change that. It looks like Vitality have changed their plans.
Interestingly enough, Joko in this game is putting his early points maxing Q. We saw Xerxes doing both E and W max yesterday for some of the damage reduction, a little bit of the extra attack speed and all of that. But this is about getting into lane.
Okay, Joko, tongue right on there, slows him up for just a second, and Jankos is going to help Febivin finish the job, so H2K collapsing.
So it's about getting into lane and then successfully being able to move around fights, but you also are a little bit easier to kill without some of the extra points in damage reduction. But Steelback trying to get away.
Flash followed through. Feathers fly for Nuclear, and now they swallow up Steelback, and Otawamne gets the kill. The H2K gang squad has arrived.
And this is the difference between watching NIP play with the Tahm Kench in game 1 and now watching H2K play with it in this series is, look, it's not all about just using the Abyssal Voyage once. It's about every single time somebody on Vitality is out of position. Shay pops the ultimate, gets one person. They're already making a play for the tower. And from what looked like a very serious deficit early on for H2K, they're turning this game right back around and they've got the gold lead once again.
Yeah, Kabashard unable to finish off the turret. He'll finally do it after this next wave completes, and the Rift Herald is going to pop. But H2K, they've definitely stepped it up in the early game after it looks like they were going to fall behind for a little bit. Vitality made some nice moves, but it's really nice to see H2K firing back on all cylinders.
No minion wave.
Yeah, that's not going to finish.
No wave means no way of getting the tower behind that Orianna. And
I
normally,
see what you did there.
That's the position where Rift Herald should be so strong. You should be able to get that tower, but doesn't get it on this exchange. But what we wanted to highlight as we come closer and closer to some of these skirmishes is how much more active H2K have been in the early game. When you look at that 15-minute mark, they have been much more, they've had a much greater emphasis on fights, on skirmishes that have been more successful. You can see their assists per game has gone way in favor of H2K considering their spring split performance.
And I think what you said about efficiency is an important point, right? H2K have gotten better at doing this as well. They would always sometimes make plays, but it seemed like they would back off if it didn't quite work, if they kind of got wrecked a little bit. You saw at the early game here, they were losing a couple of kills, but then they just bounced right on back. And not in solo fashion, they just brought 4 members. This is why the Tahm Kench is working so well for them right now. This is a team that in the early game definitely has coordination.
And that Abyssal Voyage is available once again, so from this point, they don't necessarily have an angle on it. It is a 2v2 with Jankos maybe able to get up behind them, but that's where you start looking at if Steelback sits in this lane on his own and Vander recalls on a ward, that Abyssal Voyage may come out. That ward, I believe, actually spots him out.
Okay.
And Vander recalled. Vander completed that recall on a ward. Joko now dies because of it. That's exactly what we're talking about from H2K.
Oh boy, the flash over is actually going to prevent his death just now. Steelback was there, but that was a lot to try and get out of it. Even had infinite duress onto Jankos just to make sure he wasn't going to go down that easily. It does free up the red buff to be picked up by Nuclear, and now with so much territory controlled by H2K in that jungle, where are they going to make their move next? It looks like the mid lane is the target of choice. Nukeduck has to watch his back.
Yeah, it's a move towards mid, and this makes it difficult for Nukeduck.
Oh man, he went all in to see if he could pick off onto Febiven, but nothing doing. Instead, he just shatter orbs and clears away most of the wave. Still, some chip damage on this turret. Vitality don't have a response in lane.
Nukeduck may once again be the saving grace for Vitality for a while in this game. They need a lot more time for Steelback really to become active in this game.
And that's the point I wanted to go back to about Nukeduck, because there was a point in his career where you would consider him one of, if not the best mid laner at the time in Europe. That was a long time ago, by the way. But I was talking about Deficio earlier on in the week, and there are times when a glimpse of that former self starts to come out. And we saw some impressive play early on as the Shockwave mostly clears the minion waves off. Nukeduck is definitely a player on these Assassins, not afraid to go in, make the big hero play. And maybe that's what Vitality needs to get themselves back on their feet, to keep it going. It certainly worked against the Mysterious Monkeys.
You see it every so often, but it's not the kind of thing that you can rely on every game, or at least in most of the games.
No, you got to feed him his
Weetabix
Weetabix first. It doesn't work every day.
But at this point, he's going to try and show that a little bit against Odoamne on the bottom side.
The Jankos. No, not going to be the 2-on-1 for now. Still, you can always see he's sniffing for the play, sniffing for a chance to get his team ahead.
he's back bot lane again.
Well, he did say, I was talking to him backstage, like, I'm going to camp this bottom lane, but Vander's not here. So I don't know how he feels about that.
Probably fine at this point, because he recognizes his team's ahead. Why did Nukeduck stay?
Yeah, Nukeduck, he has to burn his flash, and now Nuclear's going all in. They get the root! And Nuclear with the finishing move grabs himself a kill. Nukeduck got nuked himself.
So Nukeduck on a mobile champion in the long lane stays because he thinks he's safe from Jankos not being there. But what has happened 3 times in this game already, Pyra?
I'm going to go with option number 1. Che ults into the lane.
Good guess. That you didn't need 50-50, phone a friend, ask the audience.
Confident.
It was good.
I'm confident on this one.
Okay.
I was prepping for that, to be fair.
That's like the $100 question. That's not the $1 million
All right, give me the 200. I want to work my way up.
Are H2K going to get this tower? There's only 2 answers.
In 2 minutes. Anyways, we'll see how it goes. Fight's on right now. They get the fear off. Nukeduck looking to try and pick a target. H2K are scattering. It's Che, the only one in range. But that's not the target they want, and his shield absorbs everything.
This should, however, be Vitality's push here onto the mid lane tower. odoamne is going to head towards the top side, or at least try to. Nukeduck's trying to cut in from the side, so I don't think Vitality actually want to fight this, but their wave is going to die very quickly with the Xayah here.
Shockwave. That finishes off the minion wave. That's the second time we've seen Febiven do that in this mid lane. They are really trying to hold on to the tower lead they have. It's very slim in the gold advantage.
And remember, with Rift Herald already having been used in this game, there's no easy option for Vitality to just push through the mid lane. They have to kind of fight with H2K for it. So even if you are throwing out Shockwave every now and again, Nuclear has wave clear in the mid lane when Orianna isn't available, and then Shockwave's only a short cooldown, comes back up, you can get rid of the minions again.
Yeah, that's a good point, really. There's not a whole lot they can do now. They are still taking pot shots at it time and again, but you can see Nuclear was there to clear it away. Vitality do have some vision that they've managed to extend a little bit of the way into the H2K jungle, but not enough of it in. And here is where Nukeduck gets deleted.
Yeah, the thing is he needed to be running way earlier. Nice flash during the Featherstorm from Nuclear. As soon as you're close enough that Featherstorm puts you into an angle that 3 feathers are going to hit, you're basically dead against the Xayah. And there's not really any kind of response for it. And speaking of this Xayah, we talked a little bit about how H2K will have the late game. Even coming from their AD carry as well. Nuclear opting for the Essence Reaver build gives you a significant amount of damage in the late game. The cooldown on the E goes down to like 8 seconds, so you can get multiple rotations within team fights. And then Featherstorm just bursts out every single fight. You get a whole bunch of feathers drawing back, but mid lane, oh, Vander didn't quite connect.
Yeah, his feathers were not flashy enough. However, it opens the door for Vitality to finally finish off the mid-tier 1. But that has been so long coming. We're approaching the 20-minute mark. Vitality are going to be able to back away in lane. H2K, you talked about them really gunning for this later game. And honestly, in the mid, it's not working too badly for them. They still have this gold lead. They still are holding firm. There's not a lot Vitality have been able to get.
A lot of the reason why Vitality could push up onto the mid tower there, though, was the fact that H2K sent Featherman up to the top side, which they wanted to defend the top tower. It's understandable why you do that. They basically concede that mid tower is low health and it will eventually die. But Nuclear, without his flash, didn't want to go aggressive with the Featherstorm, didn't want to leave himself vulnerable for any kind of counter-engage. But meanwhile, odoamne already winning the side lane. This is the same thing again.
Flashes through. This time, Noche was a little bit farther behind, but it doesn't really matter as H2K are still on the front side. You can see the Xayah took out the tower in the mid. Now Joko gets riposted. In goes Yanko's Infinite Duress. I'm not sure that's the move you wanted, buddy, as he gets swallowed up by Che, who flashed forward, spits him right back on out into the waiting arms of Yankos, who picks up that kill. 20 minutes on the board.
I think Joko was trying to deny Yankos a kick opportunity because his flash was available, but I don't think he realized Yankos didn't have kick quite yet. It has just become available. Don't know whether that was Joko trying to escape and Yankos blocked it. I guess we'll end up getting a replay and we can see in the slow motion exactly what Joko was looking for there. But again, another member of Vitality pushed out on the side lanes. Che comes in, evens up the numbers, puts it in the favor of H2K, and it's another kill going over to H2K. Now, 2 towers died, 1 for each team during that. The mid tower of Vitality was taken by Featherman and Nuclear, and H2K lost their top tower to Nukeduck. So a little bit of extra gold for each team, a lot of that map now opening up, and honestly, that may still benefit H2K with these Tom Kench plays.
Yep. How many times is it going to take Vitality dying before they realize we cannot be out on these side lanes? Well, at least one more, it seems.
So, Joko's about to use that Infinite Duress. What is it that in fact helps? Oh, Yankos blocked it. That was beautiful. It was actually, I think he was following up on the Q, was able to block the Infinite Duress on the way out. Nice.
Nice.
That was stylish.
Well, H2K definitely are doing it in style right now. 1,500 gold in the lead as we get to the 22-minute mark. Che hiding in the brushes as Joko throws down the ward. Won't get too much sight off of it thanks to the control that H2K have already placed. And they are looking to make moves inwards into this jungle of Vitality. Nukeduck still waiting on the bottom side to try and duel out against odoamne. See if he's got what it takes to make it happen. He steps forward. He wants that red buff.
odoamne I feel like could win an extended trade as long as the chains miss on the first exchange. I'm pretty sure he will actually just 1v1 down Nuke Duck.
Might just be the case. Well, Joko, okay, buddy, he is tanky enough to survive, but wandered a little bit too far out of range once again for his teammates to really get in time.
Look at Jankos, the team player here. Lock it in the Iron Solari, second item on the Lee Sin. We see a couple of times that locket. He's just like, I'm just gonna make sure the team survives through team fights. Don't want to go any of that solo carry build.
Nah,
This
he's
is
gonna
a
leave that.
different Jankos to the one we used to know.
Well, you know, he's had a long career himself, so yeah, it's always time to learn and try new things. Odoamne and Nuclear are going to be covering that gap this game anyways, and let's not forget Febivin as the game goes on, and he's going to be harder, slipperier to kill as well now that he has the Banshee's Veil all completed. It's going to be difficult for Vitality, especially now that this Dragon is going to be finished up pretty easily. There's so much vision in the river for H2K. Vitality have been losing this war of attrition slowly but surely.
Yeah, and I like the play that Vitality made onto the top side to get the first couple of kills of the game, as well as the 1v1 from Nuke Duck. Just being able to kind of outplay Febivin in the mid lane, but from there, it's been the same kind of symptoms from Vitality where one member gets caught out and suddenly Vitality can't skirmish. And we looked at the amount of damage that their carries do the other day at the beginning of Thursday's show. And there are so many fights that Vitality are outnumbered that they just never end up being able to do damage.
But they might be able to get the numbers this time around. Oh, unless Joko goes down, and he does to start things off. Jay tanked up the rest of Vitality as Nuke Duck gets in around the backside to try and finish the job onto Nuclear, who gets swallowed up by Che. Cabochard, meanwhile, trying to 1v1 out against Odoamne, but the Croc is gonna get rocked! Febivin with the finisher! And the ace in the hole goes straight into Febivin's health bar, but that's not going to be enough. 2 kills for 0 as Nuke Duck once again looks for an inroad, but there's nothing there.
Yeah, a lot of little 1v1s happened during that exchange. Nuclear tried to face off against Nuke Duck, but in came Che to keep him alive. Jankos maybe trying to put the frighteners onto Nuke Duck in that mid lane, push them away from Baron. Here comes Odoamne. Now keep in mind, H2K have got a good amount of damage to take down this Baron quickly.
That they do, but Joko is back up if he can get there in time.
No
Vitality can
infinite
peel
duress.
him off. Yes, you are correct. Baron has not always been H2K's friend, but will that change right here, right now? The Baron is smited away, and Nuke Duck cannot get the finishing kill onto anybody, and he's forced to burn Flash into enemy territory just to get out alive.
Yeah, it was a Baron call with a bigger lead than this that H2K bungled, I should say, against the Unicorns of Love. But
Well, they bundled up the
H2K
win for them.
first rated for Baron control. This is because they didn't give away a Baron in like the first 2 weeks of the split.
Yeah, you got to give yourself some credit from earlier on in the split, and then you can afford to make a few mistakes.
So Joko tries to get Odoamne, parry comes through, and brilliant block on the infinite duress. Once again, Joko not having any luck with his ultimate. Nuclear, he has flash, he has ult, doesn't choose to use him because Che is there to keep him alive, and then Odoamne finds a Cabochard, is able to take him down, and on the bottom left part of your screen, we are seeing Nuke Duck stalking Odoamne, but
Yeah.
look at where Che is. Che's ult is coming through.
All right, Nuke Duck, I got to give him credit for
Che
trying
canceled
over and over again, but he is always on the wrong side of the map at this point.
Che cancelled his ult because he knew he could just run after Nuke Duck and find it.
This will not end well.
One auto is all that Febivin needs.
Just keeps on going. Whoa, he wanted to flash for that one. I thought we were going to be in for a long chase.
Yeah, I thought we were in for a chase. I'm like, I'm just going to watch how this plays out.
Not today, says Febivin. I mean, he's 3-1-2 at this point, so despite the fact that he was getting bullied in lane, it hasn't mattered much, and that is a big amount of gray health as Che unfortunately fails his flash over the wall, but Nuclear does not, followed through by Cabochard. Just like that, they got 2 kills.
Yeah, Vitality fire back, catching out H2K when they were on their own, and Nuclear tried to come in to defend Che, then had to use his ultimate and flash over the wall because he can't cross walls just with the ultimate alone. And Nuclear and Che both die the first time in this game. H2K, maybe a little rock. This will hold some of their presence from that Baron buff being taken.
They did manage to get a tower on the bottom side as Odoamne had kind of hard committed, but it just seems like both teams have been giving up these isolated or semi-isolated kills
Yeah.
And that's really just been the impetus for a lot of this action. So let's see how it all started as Che goes in, right in between two, with nobody in his belly.
Yeah, Che orchestrated this play. That's I think Jankos, they thought maybe was coming across the mid lane, but Jankos was actually chasing Vander. Then Nuclear had to use the flash to get over the wall. Double kill for Cabo.
That could have been a lot worse. At least Odoamne got a tower out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, Odoamne has full control of the side lanes.
Whoa, he's going to need it, though. There's 4 Vitality members.
Yeah, 1 versus 1. Nobody can really deal with this Fiora, but he has got Baron buff.
And he's got a ward, so he saw them coming. Meanwhile, H2K have got 4 on mid, and Nukeduck sitting there to defend. Jankos trying to clear some vision away himself, and now Jankos got the command protect on with Baron buff intact on a few members still. H2K are looking to try and finish off the second-tier tower. Odoamne is going to have better luck up top. It's the 4-1 for H2K.
Che's ult is back available again.
He gets the knock-up, and now they've chosen Jankos and finish him off. It's Nukeduck finally breaking out of the game with a kill right here. Ace the hole going to land onto Che.
Finally, Joko manages to find somebody with the ultimate without it getting blocked, and Jankos ends up falling. It will, once again, delay any more impact. Baron buff has just expired for H2K. So now they're just going to have to use the gold lead that they've accrued already. Just about 4,000. They are strong enough in the side lane with Odoamne, but he doesn't have teleport for another few seconds. And that means he can't reliably be out on that side lane, especially not when Jankos is still dead.
It seems like the game plan for H2K really allows for this. They've been giving up a kill here and there, but they're still getting towers. Odoamne has been a monster side pusher. He's 3-1-3, and as you said earlier, no one of Vitality can deal with him. They need to send multiple members at that point. And it's just going to get worse and worse as Fiora is going to get stronger. Sitting on the Trinity Force, a Ravenous Hydra. Difficult for anyone from Vitality to find him. Although Nukeduck has been trying.
And Nukeduck has been trying, and it's important to note that Steelback is the best farmed person in this game. We've given him a little bit of emphasis on how low his damage has been. Well, it's difficult when you get past 4 items on Caitlyn not to deal a lot of damage. So as long as Steelback can stay alive, once he's got his next item completed, Static Shiv Rapid Fire Cannon has already been finished. If H2K don't find their way into the backline, Steelback should be able to have a considerable impact. Problem is, Orianna, Fiora, and a late game building Xayah make it very difficult for one member to out-damage the group.
Yeah, Nukeduck has not really been able to do enough on his own to really kind of keep that at bay. And Cabochard, even though he did get a couple of kills in the early stages of the game, that's not going to be a damage threat the longer it goes on. He's going to need to keep getting tanky. You see the Sterix Cage completed on him as well. It seems like they're just going to need to find like almost a perfect angle to get like a pick so the fight just instantly becomes a 5v4. And H2K have shown that they're not immune to getting picked off in a bad situation, but we'll see if that holds true as Joko looks to go in onto Nuclear, backs off.
Nuclear didn't quite get the angle on the feathers there. The third one didn't quite cross through Joko. It can be tricky. H2K are going to try and make a play onto the top side as Odoamne tries to get out.
He could be in trouble. He's speedy, but is he going to be fast enough?
He does have Guardian Angel.
And he's got Flash too. That was a lot of movement by Vitality to try and get on to Odoamne, and there are no mini waves in the mid, but H2K have taken up an advanced position to try and push this. They might just be able to do it.
Yeah, they're going to have the wave soon. Vitality having to recall, so that's going to be a tower going over to H2K for all of that investment on the bottom side. Keep in mind, Odoamne's teleport is available. So is Nukeduck, but Nukeduck has no flash right now, so he has to kind of run away from this fight quick. Vitality going to try and box in H2K in the jungle, but remember, Odoamne's not too far away.
Yeah, Joko's going in, but the rest of H2K, they're kind of holding the line right now, but in comes Cabochard. Jankos, he's trying to get out of there, and meanwhile, the rest of the team has arrived to Steelback. Will clean up the jungler. Nukeduck coming in around the backside, manages to get an explosion onto Nuclear, but Febiven picks up Steelback. It is a bloodbath, and the smoke clears 2 for 2.
H2K, though, with a massive Feather Storm stun through the majority of that fight, made it better than it should have been, because Vitality was starting to become, put themselves in a lethal position when it comes to H2K. But now H2K, remember, GA still on this Fiora. They're going to try and rush down the tower quickly and maybe back away after it.
Okay, Che preemptively swallows up Sentiment. They're going to get themselves the tower, and now they feel like they can keep on going. Odoamne is just massive, and now the inhibitor down to half its health. Joko, Vander, Nukeduck all trying desperately to defend, but it will be all for naught, and H2K can walk away with their prize.
Vitality recognizing exactly what happened to Splice when it came to this Fiora being played up against him. And this time, odoamne 4-1-4, not quite the 8 kills that he scored up against Splice. But look at this. Okay, the engage goes on to Jankos. They take a lot of his health off. And Vitality is starting to close in. Shay is able to keep Jankos alive for a little while longer. But look at this 3-person stun that comes through right the way through the fight, and it denies Steelback being able to have Vitality peel for him. And again, it's another fight where Steelback dies and nobody is around to keep him alive. There was a significant amount of damage on Vitality, and that was with Steelback getting picked off to end the fight.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the setup couldn't have been that much better because Vander landed a multi-man knockup. Didn't manage to get the quickness to taunt anybody up, but it didn't matter because then Cabochard comes around the back. Joko was holding on to them. And then it just kind of fell apart a little bit because H2K kind of condensed themselves into this giant mass of absorbing all that damage before turning it back around.
H2K have started to not necessarily slow down. They did, of course, just get that inhibitor. But it started to look a little messier out of H2K for the last couple of minutes. Still heavily ahead. Shay wants to go aggressive, taking Nuclear with him this time. Oh, that's actually right into the backline.
Oh boy, Nuclear, can he stay alive? He gets charmed up for just a second, but they are going to try to keep turning it. The Shockwave will pull in many, but they have lost their AD carry. A pair of redemptions come down. I don't know if anyone's going to be redeemed after this one, but H2K got enough in the tank, and that Fiora's running wild. Febiven's helping out as well, and it's the last man standing, Nuke Duck, as H2K look to close this out.
Shay just delivered Nuke Duck as a sacrificial lamb to Vitality to win game 1.
Well, I suppose Nuclear might have been the one going down, the odd man out, as you would say, but odoamne is certainly making these odds pretty darn even, as the Nexus is going to fall, and 34 minutes in, H2K are going to take a 1-0 lead in the series.
Nuclear was laughing about that. Nuclear like had his arms in the air, cheering on his team. He's like, yeah, deliver me into the team. I'll soak up everything as an AD carry.
I love that attitude from an AD carry, by the way, because you don't get that all the time, especially from guys like Steelback. No, go in. I want to see this guy in like a Jinx or something.
That was great. H2K knowing like, okay, all we got to do is kill him in the fight and we won the game. Everything's fine. Send in the AD carry.
Yep. Well, I mean, he goes in and he instantly gets charmed by Rakan, which is thematically appropriate, I suppose. But then, yeah, the rest of the team's like, oh, we have damage.
Yeah. odoamne shows up, helps carry the rest of the fight with Febiven and H2K. The game started out in favor of Vitality, but Vitality, it just all starts falling apart when they drip kills over to their opponents. And you got to look at it. Tahm Kench, worth banning.
Fiora maybe.
Worth banning.
Still undefeated.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much jungle emphasis by both teams that you can't really fault Vitality for taking away the Zac, the Elise, and the Thresh. But then you look at how H2K play around the Fiora, the Tahm Kench. I think for them, those picks are maybe even stronger than an Elise.
Yeah.
Maybe a Thresh.
I mean, banning out so many junglers is a double-edged sword, and if you're going to do it, you should make sure your pool is larger than your opponent's. Kind of hard to do against Jankos. All right, well, H2K, they got off to a good start in the series. We're going to go ahead and check in our analysts for a closer look.
Thank you very much, Pyra. An explosive game 1 for sure. Very back and forth there for a little while. And as we get a chance to look at picks and bans, I want to talk a little bit about these solo lane matchups. Specifically, looking at the top lane here, Wadid, it felt like Renekton just dominated this Fiora early on, and maybe some mistakes from odoamne in the early laning phase.
You have to really care about the Renekton only trades, because if you trade a lot with Renekton, after that Renekton just lifesteal with his Q, and then he get a lot of advantage from it, and that means they can vision control with that pressure. So you have to really care about that. Maybe he just want to kill Cabochard, and then he trades a lot. That's the point, I think.
I actually think Cabochard played this matchup really well as well, because he played around the pressure extremely well, and he really put it down onto odoamne, nearly getting a solo kill in some instances. Well, if it wasn't for a bit of jungle pressure, it could have been very one-sided.
And jungle pressure coming in from Joko as we bring up our first replay. Got to keep your eyes on exactly how the things unfold here. This is, of course, the first blood in the mid lane. Brief moment of disrespect from Nuke Duck that does give Vitality an early advantage. It just goes straight into this fantastic topside play from Cabo.
Yeah, I think it's worth highlighting here that H2K, I think, was a little bit greedy to try and go for that play. They thought that maybe they could get a shutdown onto Cabo because he's super overextended on this Renekton, but Joko spent a lot of his early game just sitting around the top half of the map, enabling Cabo to continue playing the way in which he did. And I think that Vitality respected what H2K were trying to do, which was snowball that Fiora and try and get her out of what was a rough early matchup. But in terms of the early game, in terms of the top and mid anyway, things were going heavily in favor of Vitality. Not quite the same down the bottom lane.
Yeah, let's take a chance to talk about the bot lane matchup now. Wadid, what are your thoughts on the Caitlyn Tahm Kench versus these, not the Caitlyn Tahm Kench, rather the Xayah Tahm Kench versus the Recon Caitlyn on the opposite side? How do you expect this lane to sort of play out here?
Yeah, because this is only one chance to H2K because they have a losing matchup on the top side and mid, right? But they used their Tahm Kench ulti really well. That was the key point of the win. And then, like, basically, Caitlyn have an early pressure on both sides, but they failed at level 1, that's the point. And then Tahm Kench have pressure also, and the Tahm Kench can move a lot with his ulti. That means silent pressure is whatever, Tahm Kench can move, man advantage. Yeah, I think Che just shot caller is insane. It was like a lot of insane play, I think. He just did really well.
It looked really good from the overall, and even in the early laning phase where we kind of expected Caitlyn to be successful, it seems like it wasn't so good from Vitality. So is this Che just being really, really, really good, or is this kind of a little bit of failure on the side of Vitality?
I think if you play against Tahm Kench, they have to communication really a lot, but maybe they did mistake because they have a winning matchup on side lane, right? So they want to pressure on side lane, but maybe they forget about the Tahm Kench because Che on Tahm Kench, like, it's insane. Like, he can just move globally and then they can just have a man advantage, you know? Like, more than a Twisted Fate. So if you play against Tahm Kench, if you lose matchup, and then if you're losing at the lane, you have to really respect about the Tahm Kench ulti.
And I also think it's worth highlighting that something that we were talking about during the game was that in order to play around Tahm Kench, you have to have really good communication, right? You need to be discussing that if you know exactly what's going on the map and where the pressure is being exerted, you can look to expect where that Tahm Kench play is going to be happening from. And earlier in the day, we saw Roccat adapt because even though that Tahm Kench was shutting down Faxi, they were able to get mid lane priority. They were able to trade towers for losing kills down in the bottom. What we saw from Vitality was they were not doing that. They were always losing a member and they were the ones to lose objectives because H2K had good control over both mid and the side lanes in order to make sure that Vitality couldn't punish them.
And it was kind of tough to watch because for so much of the early game, Vitality was in control, but H2K were able to take it back. And as we look at one of these fights that occurred pretty close to the end of the game, you can see Vitality maybe not respecting the snowball potential of some of these picks on the side of H2K.
Yeah, you can see that Vitality, they actually tried to set up a flank, but something that you were saying did was that the communication didn't quite seem on point for Vitality.
Yeah, Renekton and LeBlanc was strong at this comp, but they just go engage a bit really early, so they failed the collapse, and they have Xayah, right? That means that you have to really care about his passive, but they failed to dodge it. So yeah, if you want to collapse it, you have to communication really a lot. Yeah, communication again, but yeah, it was a bit close for Vitality. If they collapse correctly, it was gonna be like big win for Vitality.
Definitely could have been. So I'm curious, Wadid, looking ahead to the next game, if you're playing for Vitality, what do you think is something that has to change? Is it just communication in game? Is it the draft? What would you want to see them change?
I think everything was fine, but the one point, if you play Caitlyn, you have to pressure on ball lane early game. But actually, I think they failed at level 1 really hard, so they have to really care about the early level on both side trade.
And for H2K, I think I want them to be a little bit more respectful because twice we did see Xayah get baited in a little bit by Che, where they go into a fight and then Xayah has to end up losing her life. And it's almost like that, hey, if you have a Galio, then that kind of engage makes a lot of sense. And Galio did make it through the draft, so maybe if you want to make those kind of plays, you look to try and pick up the Galio.
But then you don't have a Fiora or an Orianna, and the Fiora was pretty clutch, and the Orianna felt like it had a few moments. But maybe we'll see some changes on the side of H2K. Either way, H2K struck first, but can Vitality respond with a win? Well, we'll find out because Game 2 is right around the corner.
See how it ends up working out for Team Vitality. This team really needs to build on the momentum that they've started, but H2K, they're going to be hunting. Look for the duress, flashes, dashes, there it goes! 2 quick kills for Vitality. Can they make it 3? Cabochard calls the meek and gets himself another. Cabochard, meanwhile, trying to 1v1 out against Odawane, but the Croc is gonna get rocked! Fabivin with the finisher! Ooh, he wanted to flash for that one. Not today, says Fab. Wamne is certainly making these odds pretty darn even as the Nexus is going to fall, and 34 minutes in, H2K are going to take a 1-0 lead in the series.